So, just for those of us in our community who might not know you, why don't you tell us something a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am Emily Mildenberger. I grew up in this church. I went to East. I was confirmed at East. My husband Andrew and I got married at East 6 years ago, on June 28th, and so this church has it has a big meaning to us and our family. So I am a teacher librarian at Upchurch Elementary School and Millard Public Schools. Andrew and I have two beautiful daughters. Catherine is going to be 5 in August, and Evelyn would have been 2 in May.
So you mentioned your two daughters, Catherine and Evelyn. I want describe them for me.
Oh, okay. So Catherine is me in so many ways, on so many levels. I think if I hear my parents say, I wonder where she gets that from one more time, I'm going to just like, okay, I get it. She's me. Okay. She is stubborn. But she is also the most caring individual. She has this little bunny that we call Evo Bunny. And when she can see that I'm sad, she gives me Evo Bunny. And so she is just so caring in that way. And she's also smart and sassy and adventurous.
Did she get her love of dancing from you?
No, that's all her.
Okay.
And Evelyn was kind of our go with the flow. She was more like Drew, where Drew is, very go with the flow, easygoing. And that was Evelyn. She really just kind of had a smile on her face all the time. You would wake her up and she would just look at you and just be like, hi, it's another beautiful day. So she had just this joy. And, usually when kids are, kind of getting to that year-old time, they get stranger danger and they only want to be with their mom or their dad. But Evelyn never got that. Evelyn never got stranger danger. She put so much joy in so many people's hearts, and it fills my heart with joy to know that she filled their hearts with joy.
You had mentioned to me that she had a fascination with doors.
She did, yeah. She always used to if we would set her down in the kitchen, she would go and open the cabinets, and so we'd have to be very careful about what we put in those cabinets. But and even downstairs at my parents' house, they have this little toy chest and or toy armoire kind of thing, and she would always go and open the door and close it, and that's all she would do. She wouldn't take any toys out. She would open it and close it and open it and close it.
Now you mentioned that Evelyn would have been 2 in May. I know that your family's life changed forever in Easter of 2019. Go ahead and share with us what happened.
On April 24th of 2019, Evelyn, we found her and she had passed away in her sleep.
One of the emotions that you've had to work through is anger, and I'm wondering if you would be willing to share with us kind of what you meant by that.
Obviously the first thing was shock, and after the shock wore off, I was angry. I was angry that she was taken from us so young, and I was just angry about everything. The littlest things would set me off. Even things that didn't even have to do with Evelyn. Things in all aspects of my life. I would just, my main emotion in my body was anger, and a lot of the times, there was no one to point my anger at because she died in her sleep. So, there was no one did anything to cause it. No one could have done anything to stop it. And there was no one to be angry at. So a lot of the times my anger pointed at God, like, why did you do this? How did you let this happen? And that was my life for a good 6 months. I was angry, and, my relationship with God kind of almost suffered a little bit, where I was mad. When you're mad at somebody, you don't talk to them as often as you would. And so then I went to the women's retreat last October, and I had the chance to kind of process through what my anger was doing to my relationship with God. And I just kind of realized, through reflection, that he didn't do this. He didn't cause her death, but he wanted to be there for me. He so wanted to be there for me in my pain, and he wanted to help me through it. And so I was kind of able to process through that anger, and I don't want to say forgive him because he didn't do anything, but just kind of step past it and move past it into this space where I allow God to help me through this, through the pain and through the anger.
Do you still find moments where you still get angry?
Yes, all the time. And sometimes it's irrational. Like I'm so angry about something that I shouldn't really be that angry about. And I still do. It's something that I'm going to work through for the rest of my life, I think, just trusting God and, and kind of working through that anger.
You mentioned, as we talked about this, that one of the things in processing Evelyn's passing is that this event actually just sort of seeps into every other area of life. Would you be willing to maybe just comment on that for just a couple of minutes?
Yeah. So, like I said, I just find myself getting angry at the littlest things. Little things can be triggers, and even though I wouldn't have normally gotten angry about it before, now I'm getting angry about this thing that really doesn't need my anger. And so it was kind of, my soul and my heart I didn't like where I was. I didn't like the person I was becoming. And a lot of my prayer time was complaining, like, why did you let this happen? Not even just about Evelyn, but about other things. So if I saw that, say someone made a decision that affected me that I wouldn't agree with, like a leader, for example, made a decision that I don't think is right and that I don't like, I wouldn't have made that decision if I had been in their place. And so I'm angry about it and I'm praying about it. Like, how could you let that leader make this decision? How could you put that person in power? Blah, blah. And it just was a complaining time to God. And so I realized that the complaints weren't getting me anywhere. And so I kind of started to pray for that person. And I kind of started to think of it as like solution-based prayer.
Yeah, so that was actually my next point, is that one of the things that I've been really taken by, even just how we have talked about this whole process. And I think one of the things that I would encourage other people who would be listening to you is again, it's clearly, I think what you've experienced and learned through this time is that sometimes all we can do is complain and cry out and like let the Lord know, hey, I'm mad and I'm mad at you. Yeah. And because he's good in that way, he allows us that cry. But I think one of the things that's been really an encouragement and even a challenge for me is how you have mentioned that the Holy Spirit has actually used this time as a way for you to develop an approach to prayer that you call solution-based, like a solution-based prayer. And I'm wondering if you would be willing to share with us what that is.
What I tried to do was, when I got mad at a person or a situation, I would try to think about what I wanted for that person or for that situation. So maybe back to my example about the leader making a decision. I would probably pray for something, during my prayer time, I would talk to God about how I know that I don't know everything that person is using to make their decision. There are things that I don't know, that led to that decision. And God knows those things. He knows what led that person to make that decision. And I want him to give them the wisdom and the strength and the courage to make the right decision for the most people. And it kind of, I feel in my mind, I feel like I get my frustration out to God that I am angry about this. This is something I don't agree with, but I don't end angry. I kind of end in this peaceful spot where I have said my piece almost. I've said what I wanted to say, and I'm okay with where it is.
So speaking of that peace, one of the songs that you have said has really ministered to you since Evelyn's passing is the song called Thy Will. Maybe talk about how the words of that song have actually grounded you with that sense of peace.
Yeah, so, I think that God gives us what we need when we need it. And that song came on the day Evelyn passed away as I was leaving my parents' house. That song came on. and I had never heard it before. And we listened to K-Love and KGBI all the time, and I had never heard it before. And it just like it was as if Hillary Scott was taking the feelings and the words straight from my heart. And so pretty much ever since the day that Evan passed away, that song has meant so much to me, because in that song she talks about how one of the verses says something to the effect of, I may never understand how my broken heart is a part of your plan. And I probably won't, I probably won't ever get how this all works out, how this is a part of the plan. But I do know that it is a part of the plan, just from things like that, where I know that he was there comforting me on the day that she died with that song. He was giving me the words that I didn't have through that song. And so it just has kind of come up in certain situations where I've been scared or where I've been hurting, and it just has played on the radio. And I know that he had put it there for me. And so it just has really meant a lot to me.
But up until this point, what would you say is the biggest epiphany or realization or God sighting in all of this?
Before Evelyn passed away, I had a pretty cushy life. I never had to worry about where my next meal was coming from, where I was going to sleep that night, all those things. And so when I would pray to God about problems that I had, I felt guilty, like he's got so much more on his plate. He's got, all these people, and even in this city there are people that don't know where their food's coming from and don't know where they're going to sleep and don't know, there are so much bigger problems than my silly problems. I felt like that before Evelyn passed away. But my biggest realization since she's passed away is that he's big enough to hear all of our problems, even the ones that we think are silly. They're not silly to him. He cares about all of them, and he wants to hear about all of them, and he just wants us to talk to him about them, and he wants to be there for us. And so that has really, and I've really truly felt that this year, that even if it's a problem of something that I've already worked through, but I'm still having some tough times with, I can go back to him and say, I know that we've already talked about this. I know that we've already come to a conclusion that this is what it is, but I just need some more reassurance. I just need some, and he's there for it. He's there for me. He's there, and he wants to hear it. And there's nothing too small or too silly to talk to him about. That was my biggest thing. He's always here for us, no matter what our problems are, even if there are bigger problems.
Right. You've mentioned many times in our conversations that one of the things that gives you hope is that Evelyn is with the Lord and that you will see her again one day. What word of encouragement might you give someone right now who is working through anger, disappointment, in whatever context? Like, what would you want them to know about who God is and who they are and this whole thing through this? One
of the phrases that I've kind of clung to this year is that faith doesn't make things easy, it makes them possible. Nowhere does it say that every single Christian is going to live this super easy life. And so when we have faith, it doesn't mean that nothing is going to happen. It just means that we're going to be able to get through it, whatever happens. And it can be really scary. It can be, terrifying, but God wants to be there with us. He wants to be there through it, and he wants to help us and comfort us. And he feels our pain. He knows our pain. He feels it, and he wants to be there to help us. And so, for example, if you had asked me, or probably Andrew, I don't want to speak too much for him, but if you had asked me right after Evelyn had died if we would have any more children, I probably would have said there was no way I could do it. There's no way I could get through that infant stage again without the fear of walking into the room and having them not be alive again.
So with that, and I appreciate your willingness to share that reality with us, I remember as we journeyed together, I often wondered, like, how does life even have joy again after an event like this, and how do we see those things? And And I remember talking to not only you and Andrew about the fact that no more kids. We're just going to give all of our attention to Catherine, and I think that that was a very appropriate response for where you two were at processing. But I'm learning in life that the Lord has a way of surprising us. And so, is there something, as a word of encouragement, you want to follow up on that train of thought that you and Andrew had when this first happened?
Yeah, so in September, Drew and I will be welcoming our third child, a little boy named Samuel. So we're super excited about that. And I'm still scared. I'm still very worried and scared, but I know that God is there with me, and whatever happens, He will be there with me through it all.
Tell me why you guys picked the name Samuel.
There's this story in the Bible that this woman, I think her name is Hannah, she really wanted a baby, and she waited a long time to have one, and she prayed to God and said, if you give me a baby, I will name him Samuel, and because Samuel means God heard. And so God kind of heard our prayers that we were wanting another baby, and He heard our prayers. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
I know that one of the ways that the Lord is using the both of you is by giving you these opportunities to share your story, your experiences, your processing with others. Kind of a last question for you: if is there some way somebody could maybe kind of engage in kind of that process with you, how the Lord has allowed you to use your voice to share what you're learning with others?
Last year, summertime, I kind of felt it on my heart to write a blog about where I was in my process. A lot of people wanted to know how I was doing, and I think that kind of updated them and helped them know where I was and be able to pray for me from where I was. And so the blog is called The Blessed Mourner, and it's on Facebook, and then it's also a website. And so I just kind of on the blog talk about the things, how we talked about how God is with me, even the things that I've already, there's similar posts that I've worked through it here, and then 3 months later I had to work through it again, the same issue. And so I just kind of, what I'm working through with God, I post about it, I write about how God's helping me, and the things that He's putting in my life, like that song Thy Will He put there for me, those kinds of things. I just kind of post those for encouragement of He is here with us, and if we let Him, He's here to comfort us.